Live from Global Line TV, my name is Ding Akech, and I welcome all viewers from Kenya and around the world. You can join the conversation on our social media handles, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Global Line TV. I will be your host for the next 25 minutes.
Sudan conflict is reshaping peace, trade, and regional security. The war in South Sudan is driving a worsening humanitarian crisis. Cybersecurity is becoming the new norm across East Africa. And youth initiatives are advancing peace and national unity.
Is cybersecurity the new norms as digital scam and fake news plague East Africa? More people across East Africa are embracing the digital world, with experts raising concern over a surge in online threats in the form of fake news and digital scam that targeted unsuspected users. Global Line TV correspondent Ernest Jenga has been following the development and bring us the report.
Cybersecurity is becoming a serious issue in East Africa. As online scams and fake news increase with wider internet and mobile phone use.
There's a time that someone hacked into my phone and was trying to transfer money from M-Pesa.
And criminals using fake job offers, mobile money tricks, and fake social media accounts to target people.
To our correspondent Ernest Jenga, join us live from Nairobi. What are the key concerns being raised?
The main concerns are the rising cases of fake news, phishing scams, and mobile money frauds as internet use grows. These threats are exposing many people to identity theft, financial losses, and misuse of personal information.
What are experts saying about this growing risk?
Indeed, the rise on internet connectivity has brought both opportunities and challenges. Experts are warning that cybercrime is increasing due to low digital awareness and more sophisticated criminal tactics.
Thank you for that comprehensive report. To shed more light, I am joined in the studio by a cybersecurity analyst and a project director for Kenya Safe Space, Mr. Abraham Merita. Thank you for joining us. What online scam trends have you noticed growing faster recently?
The urgent ones are basically issues to do with financial fraud, especially with the greater expansion of mobile usage of devices to be able to do financial transactions. It means a majority of people are relying on their devices and internet to be able to do these transactions, and it also creates loopholes where issues to do with reverse social engineering are used to basically collect personal data to defraud many Kenyans out of these systems.
What online scam trends have you noticed growing faster recently?
Most forms of online scamming are through phishing, either through SMS or emails. And basically this means that individuals are targeted to collect their personal information that would be used to conduct financial fraud. Now it has also emerged that there's something called V-phishing, which is basically used of voice. People with familiar voices like that of your relative or impersonating a known big company, for example, the ones that do the financial transactions and all these things, will call individuals to try and collect personal information that they can use. So this becomes a big issue.
How do scammers use phones or social media to fool people?
There's also the issue of identity theft, where, for example, without proper hygiene practices, individuals will leave their devices unprotected, and through simple ways like hacking, people can collect such information and create identities that can be used to collect funding or transactions. A lot of these are being used or done in Kenya through, for example, hacking of social media accounts of individuals. And you'll see things like fundraising or such alike, or send me some money urgently through this number, or such things that will take place and affect many people.
What is the simplest way someone can keep their online account safe?
The digital media literacy gap is huge because we are speaking in countries in East Africa who we can say have not yet achieved 100% literacy levels, meaning that there are few populations, especially those in rural communities and marginalized areas, who do not yet know how to read and write.
Why do many people still get tricked by online scam?
A lot is mostly poor usage of passwords. A lot of people use their IDs, their names, their date of birth as passwords. And it means these are the most easiest things that sometimes don't even require a system to be able to hack that particular account. But if, for example, someone is using like systems that are used to hack, it is easy. It will be a few seconds for such an account to be, to be exposed, and meaning that now all the information that is in that platform will be accessed. People access devices sometimes through public Wi-Fi's, and because of that, it also puts some kind of exposure to attacks, because it means that public Wi-Fi's do not have proper security that can protect you. Again, use of internet maybe through public cyber cafes, and people do not take care of their login information. For example, logging out of particular platforms, it means that they will also be remain vulnerable to be attacked on such areas. Yeah.
What is your final message you have for online users, specifically young who are still learning digital skills, and even government officials working to improve online safety?
I think it's something that should be intentional with all the governments. From an East African perspective, I think proper legislation, and probably from the East Africa Legislative Council or Assembly, can develop proper policies that are addressing the East Africa region as a common marketplace, to ensure that all citizens in these countries can be able to have similar protections, because we all are more or less democratic societies, and we are upholding freedom of expression, access to information, and other rights of the different citizens in the region. So first is to ensure that we have proper legislation where each region or each country can be able to have the correct laws in place to ensure first there's protection, and two, there's promotion of infrastructure, especially to the rural areas, the areas that are more underserved by the things that can ensure that there is proper connectivity and basically proper usage of these platforms. Again, collaboratively find ways of addressing the challenges that we have existing in the region. If it's to do with the financial frauds, or if it's to do with the social digital attacks like cyber harassment, technology facilitated gender-based violence, or even mis and disinformation, are addressed by different actors in society, will be able to reduce the vulnerabilities and protect citizens as a whole in the region.
Thank you for your time and detailed information. On to our next news story. Ethnic identity continues to divide Kenyans both socially and politically. But how is the Kenyan youth bridging this gap for national unity? To shape Kenyan is political and society often dividing community along tribal lines. The polarization, a new generation of young Kenyan is stepping up to promote peace, inclusion, and national unity. We take a look at how Kenyan youth bridging the gap in pursuit of national unity. Global Line TV correspondent Felix Osborne has more details.
Ethnicity continues to shape social and political life in Kenya.
Kwa maoni yangu, kulingana na mimi, naona ita affect tribes lazima. So kila wazee lazima watapigia mtu wa kwao.
Especially during election periods when communities often support leaders along ethnic lines. This division has increased mistrust and online hate speech, with the analyst warning that some politicians exploit ethnic differences for personal gain.
As analysts point out, ethnic identity still continues to shape Kenya's political landscape. On the ground, This influence is also felt socially. Now, where communities often align along ethnic lines from election to everyday interactions. This division affects trust and national unity. Many now believe bridging ethnic difference is being essential for Kenya's long-term stability. I am Felix Osborne, reporting live for the Global Line TV.
With me in the studio is a political analyst in Nairobi, Mr. Samuel Manthi.
Thank you for having me.
From your observation, how does the ethnic identity continue to influence political alignment in Kenya?
Oh, well, I think it's a very, very evident phenomenon, so to speak, because one of the popular statements in that line, especially during election periods, you will hear people say in Swahili, mtu wetu, right? Translated to English, our person. And it's not just our person, the Kenyan, but our person from our tribe, from our ethnic group. So I think ethnicity as it stands has a huge impact on the Kenyan politics. However, there's a caveat to it. I think with the rising generation, ethnicity is slowly dying. For this reason, you see, the current generation, I would say the Gen Zs, so to speak, is a generation that is exposed, is a generation that is not limited to the views of the ethnic political kingpins. There are people who have access to political views of different people, because now we are in the age of internet. So I think it is slowly dying, and perhaps in 2-3 generations down the line, ethnicity will have little to no effect to the politics or the political landscape of this country.
From your perspective, what is the biggest driver of ethnic polarization in Kenya?
Well, I think ethnic polarization goes beyond election periods. And sadly so, sometimes it even creeps into the walls of civil service, so to speak. So that, I mean, now this is now going to the very reality in the society today. Someone today goes to a government office, if they see that, or if you realize that the person who is serving you can speak your language, then you would, immediately you would see someone, they are more or less demanding a better treatment than others, simply because we can speak the same language. You see that now? So that they would want to jump the queue because the person who is in charge of the queue speaks their language. I think that is still an extension of ethnic polarization.
How does ethnic identity influence the way Kenyan interacts in school and even online spaces?
In today's world, or within the generation of, the Gen Z, it's a whole different game. So that we don't care whether the person is from our tribe or it's from a different tribe, so to speak. So ethnicity having social influence, I think, is limited largely to the millennials, baby boomers, those generations that are behind. This current generation, because of the exposure, because of the increase in even internet penetration, I think it has little social influence in that regard.
Lastly, what do you think would help reduce ethnic polarization and strengthen national unity?
I think I would leave that responsibility, or I would give that responsibility to leaders. Because leaders are not just people that we elect into state offices. They are symbols of national decisions. They are symbols of decisions of the Kenyan citizenry, all right? So that when we are talking about drivers of ethnicity, sadly so, I think our leaders, not all of them though, I think our leaders to some extent play that role, and especially political leaders in that regard.
We go for commercial break and we'll be back.
Nafurahia undugu na uko wetu, na sherekea kazi na bidii yetu, tuvute pamoja, tushirikiane, bega kwa bega tujikaze, tusaidiane. Niko na uwezo wa kujiendeleza, niko nayo nguvu, nitajitahidi, niko na fanaka, nitajitolea, niko na baraka, kazi nayofanya.
Welcome back from that short break, and those who just join us now, thank you for tuning in. This is Global Line TV. Talk to us on all our social media handles at Global Line TV. The conflict in Sudan is sending a shock waves across East Africa, affecting peace, trade, and regional security. As fighting between rival military factions intensify, neighboring countries are experiencing disrupted trade, increased refugee inflow, and rising borders tensions. Global Line TV reporter Ernest Jenge filed this report.
A month of intense fighting in Sudan has displaced millions and forced thousands to flee into neighboring countries like South Sudan, Kenya, and Ethiopia.
I left Sudan because of war. The fighting that has been on for long has caused a lot of insecurities in the area.
The humanitarian pressure is growing, with towns across the border struggling to provide basic support.
Sudan's ongoing conflict is reshaping peace, trade, and security along the region. Fighting has stalled peace efforts, triggered mass displacement, and strained relations with neighboring countries. Key trade routes, including oil pipelines and Port Sudan, face disruptions that are affecting regional economies. At the same time, insecurity along borders is raising fear of arms smuggling and regional instability. How the Sudan crisis ends will largely determine stability across the Horn of Africa. Ernest Njenga reporting for Global Line TV.
We are now joined by regional security analyst Professor Wilfred Muliro in Nairobi. Thank you for having conversation with us. How does Kenyan view the role of 2021 military coup in setting the stage for this power struggle?
Kenya is so much concerned because a large state like Sudan, like Ethiopia, those are anchor states. So if they collapse, the danger of refugee and the danger of transnational organized crime is heavier than if it's a small state.
What is the Kenyan government's current official assessment on the ground in Sudan?
It's a very complex conflict with so many. Sudan has now overtaken Somalia. Somalia was one of the regional conflicts with the largest number of external actors. But Sudan now has the largest number, whether it is the regional states neighbors, the Gulf states, we have now the global actors, and you know the dynamic of resources. But in that forest, Kenya is focused more. if you have listened to our the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, his message has been to raise global awareness on the humanitarian crisis in Sudan. Right now, Sudan is the first leading in the world in terms of forced displacement, especially of children, that schools have closed. Imagine more than half the population has been displaced. There has never been a case where we are talking of 25 million people facing forced displacement. So it's a huge crisis, and it is double in the sense that the immediate neighboring states like Chad and South Sudan also have their own problems. So the worry is that the spillover of refugees from South Sudan may aggravate the situation in Chad. Chad is a struggling state, fragile, and also South Sudan.
How is the Sudan conflict affecting Kenya economies?
Sudan should have been the top 3 market for our tea.
Yeah.
They are, yes, and therefore we had developed actually very strong trading partnership. Remember, Sudan is was one of the most stable economies in the region because of its minerals and resources and then huge population. So it's a market. So obviously, economically, the conflict has disrupted the flow. You remember even because SAF, Sudan Armed Forces, control Port Sudan, where everything gets in. So they announced that they had banned our tea. But then it was impossible because it is consumed by the people. And it has even emerged that now there is more consumption. Now that people are in camps, so there are other routes that tea gets there. And so there are those aspects, as you say. We had several students in Sudanese universities from Kenya. Sudan, Khartoum, has one of the best science-based universities for the region and Middle East, so it's affecting all that.
What concrete policy measures is East African community developing to address the crisis in Sudan?
So the EAC mostly is putting more efforts on member states, that's South Sudan and DRC. You've seen those efforts. Then for Sudan, I think it's because of the trade routes. We are looking at up to Somalia. It's treated in one way, up to Gulf of Aden, crisis of the Houthis, so that line. So I may not say so much because I thought you were going towards, we are facing also, it has been more about the Horn of Africa was fragile, volatile, but of late because of elections. You see, we have just finished Tanzania, we are now, Uganda is next online, and we are seeing cross-border international activism. So we're expecting that this might not affect integration, it might deepen it. If young generations start speaking across the borders, deepening, because they say integration goes with the people. Yeah. So we hope with that, then it should be able to go wider.
What is the long-term strategic vision for achieving sustainable peace in Sudan?
It was noted that without peace and security, you cannot achieve integration and development. Yeah. So once it's achieved, then we should be able to strengthen, to deepen our integration in the region. And you know, it serves Kenya well because as a regional economic power, when there is peace, then you have more markets, you have more business, and that's why Kenya supports the African Union program of open borders. We are the most liberal that people will still, and that's how states develop, whether it's Dubai, whether it's London, whether it's New York. It's because there's free movement of people, foreigners and the natives, and the people come with ideas, and therefore it develops. So Kenya is looking at that. That's why we invest. If you look at Kenya's foreign policy, one of the key pillars is peace and security. Yeah. So we use our own money, we send troops to Somalia, in African Union. We send troops to DRC, in the UN. So the idea, we use our own money to host what is, I think, coming next, South Sudan Tumaini initiative.
Thank you for your time and detailed information. On to the next update. How is conflict and climate change driving the humanitarian crisis in South Sudan and the movement of refugees into Kenya? The combination of ongoing conflicts and weather continues to fuel one of the worst humanitarian crises in the regions. Thousands of families have been displaced, food insecurity is on the rise, and aid agencies warn that climate shocks are worsening the already fragile situation. Dama Mudui has more details.
South Sudan continues to face a deepening humanitarian crisis driven by ongoing conflict, including flood and prolonged drought. Thousands of families have been displaced, forcing many to flee their homes in search of safety, food, and basic services. Kenya has become one of the destinations for South Sudanese refugees.
Some of the challenges faced by the refugees in Kenya, one of them is inadequate health care. So as you can see, like in places like Kakuma,
with many crossing the border to escape violence and worsening living conditions.
Joining us for our final conversation is immigration and refugee lawyer, Mr. George Musie. Thank you for making your time. What are the main routes and patterns South Sudanese refugees take to reach Kenya?
Generally, and I'm sure you know that South Sudan is now part of East Africa. So East African citizens are free to roam, literally speaking. But having said that, the South Sudanese citizens, refugees as you may call them, were under what they call the mandate refugees. Mandate, it's whether you recognize there's a crisis now happening in this country, so those people don't even need a lot of screening. They just come and they settle, okay?
How are community in West Pokot coping with arrival of South Sudanese?
Thank you. And there is always a push between the host communities and the refugee communities, and there's always fights happening because the host communities feel we are hosting these people, but then we are like now the refugees. We are not the ones that are living a worse life. I'm sure you know there have been Kenyans that register themselves as refugees so that they can get that better life. You know that, and it's a big problem. I think it violates the Swahili adage that mugeni njo mwenyeji apone. Now it looks like mugeni njo na mwenyeji asipone. But it's first is training not just the facilities, but I'm sure you know the environmental degradation around the refugee camp, people fetching firewood and so forth. I remember one time and even culture erosion, okay? We were having a meeting with the MPs from there, from North Turkana, and they complained about the erosion of their culture. There's even now the push, you know, because the people in the refugee, all manner of donors and all manner of people operating there, some under the guise of protecting human rights, now they're pushing the LGBTQ agenda, which has become a big problem with the communities, you know, crying the erosion of their culture. But it is true, it's a big problem, but it should not be a problem. It needs to be a balance. So what the World Bank has done and the donors, and that's the concept behind the Shirika plan, it is upgrading the entire infrastructure in that area, okay? That's number one. Number two, like for instance, countries that do not host refugees, they have their budgetary allocation, right? Strictly for their citizens. Remember, refugees are not counted as part of the Turkana citizens. So the Turkana county government should not be required to be the one that is providing services to the refugees. And because even the NGOs and so forth providing service in the refugee camp are using Turkana space, and they are degrading the roads, the environment, everything, they have a duty also to provide a portion to support the local communities. That way, we will be taking care of the community because of their generosity to host the refugees, but also taking care of the refugees. It has to be a balance.
What are the broadened regional implications of South Sudanese refugees to Kenya?
I think, remember, all these are East Africans. It doesn't matter where they sit when you're looking at it from a regional perspective, nothing changes it. The only problem is, ask yourself, South Sudan as a member state of East Africa community, when it is weak, it's like when your finger, the smallest one, is sick. Are you sick as a human being? So when there is a violence in the East African community, we are weak as a community, because the South Sudanese, they should be somewhere in their very wealthy country, developing their country and their economy, so that even we now in Kenya should be going to South Sudan for food, because it's a very wealthy country. They have oil, I think probably the largest deposit of oil. But we are struggling here with oil importing from the Middle East while we have oil here. But the fact that we are not able to have a peaceful region, it affects the entire East African community. That's why I'm saying we need to figure out how to fix. And by the way, for your information, all refugees we have here, apart from a very small bit that is coming from Afghanistan and I think Syria, 98% of refugees are East Africans, and from Ethiopia here and Somalia.
What solution realistically exists for South Sudanese refugees in Kenya today?
So we need to, as a region, if we can fix peace in the region, then the East African community becomes stronger.
That is what we have for you today. A big thank you to everyone who has made this a success, without forgetting you, our viewers, for keeping it locked here. From our reporters, news makers, and crew, we say thank you. Until next time, keep it locked. Global Line TV have been your host, Ding Ape.